So there's this situation that's becoming much more common. So I've had people come to me and say, because of the increasing prevalence of fertility and sexual issues in marriage, my boyfriend or my fiance is saying to me, you have to be pregnant before we get married, or I'm thinking of testing things out before we get married to be sure that we're not going to have issues. And the question is, what should I do? Now, we need to assess the risk on both sides of the divide. The first one is the risk of getting married and there being issues. And then on the other side, we have the risk that, you test things out, everything is fine, you get pregnant, and then the wedding doesn't hold, things don't go ahead as planned. So let's look at both sides of the divide. Now, I need us to understand that even though it appears that there's an increased number of couples who are getting married and have fertility issues, the number of people who have those issues is still very small compared to the total number of people getting married. I think the percentage is something like 12 to 15% of people who have issues after 1 year of marriage, and by the time it's approaching 2 years, then it goes down to 10%. And there are ways that these things can be resolved. We know some of the ways. There's IVF, there's artificial insemination, there's adoption. There are other options that can deal with it. Of course, those come with their own consequences, but they are there. But the main thing I want you to focus on is that the number of people who have issues is still a small percentage of the general population of people who get married. Now, on the other hand, the fact that you tried things out and you did get pregnant, things worked out, you got pregnant. First of all, there's no guarantee that the wedding will go ahead and hold. For any number of reasons, the guy could call off the wedding, you could decide that this is not the best person for me, or there could be other issues of it that interfere with the wedding holding. Also, there's the fact that they get pregnant and eventually get married does not mean that the marriage is going to work out. So there are other issues to deal with in a marriage. Fertility is just one small issue, and the prevalence is small compared to the total population. And so the fact that you have this child, you got pregnant before marriage, does not mean that the marriage is going to turn out well, that things are going to work out. And if things don't work out, who's going to bear the risk of that? You are, because you're the woman. You're the one who gets pregnant. So in case you were pregnant before marriage and the wedding doesn't hold, you bear the risk. If you have to be a single parent, it's you who has the child. More likely that you're going to be the single parent. If you decide to have an abortion, your body is affected. You have the abortion with all the physical, psychological, and spiritual consequences attached to it. You bear that risk. And so it's important that you think through this issue and don't get yourself into something that you're not going to be able to deal with, because the risk that you face by having to deal with the premarital sex or the premarital pregnancy is a lot more than the risk of getting married and having the child. First of all, I think that it's a very big red flag when a guy says to you, except you're pregnant, I'm not going to get married to you, because it means that he's not ready to weather the storm with you. How about if he's the one that has the fertility problem? Because many times we put the responsibility for fertility issues on women, but you have to understand that statistics have shown that 30% of the time the man has the issue, 30% of the time the woman has the issue, 30% of the time both of them have the issue, and the remaining times you just can't really explain what is causing the fertility issues. So if somebody is not willing to take that risk, which is a small risk, and say, okay, let's go ahead with this marriage, and whatever comes out of it, we will weather it. That means the person is making their marriage to you contingent on the fact that you have a child for them. Yes, I know that fertility issues come with their own set of problems, but that should not be your problem alone, and it should not be the condition on which somebody is planning to marry you. So that's already one red flag that you have to deal with. Secondly, all the other possibilities are yours to deal with. If he's very good, he will hang around and say, oh yeah, I'll do my responsibilities, I'll send you money to take care of the baby and all that, or we'll share custody of the child. But guess what? You deal with it more, because in the first place, you are the one to get pregnant, you're the one to carry the pregnancy, you're the one who nurtures that child in the early stage of their life, even if you're going to share custody later. Now, that is the practical problem of having a child outside marriage, or the pregnancy issue. How about the issues of premarital sex? I know that with the way the world is today, it's like it's nothing. But the truth is that everybody who has had sex knows that sex is more than just a physical act. There's the emotional side, there's the psychological side, and there is the spiritual side to it. Now, it doesn't take a lot to figure out that if you've had sex with somebody and you see the person pass by, there's just that connection, there's just that thing, you don't just pass by, except the person has got to the point where they've done it so mindlessly, they've had so many people, they don't even remember who, and that's another set of issues on its own. But if you were the kind of person that has had sex with this person, had sex with that person, it comes with its own set of issues and its own consequences. Sex is not just a mindless physical act. It's spiritual, it's psychological, it's emotional, and it's entangling. The more entangled you are with somebody, the more difficult it becomes to make clear-headed decisions. And it's not only sexual entanglements. Sometimes it's financial entanglements. Sometimes it's social entanglement. So you've bought a house with this person, we've been planning our finances together, you've already done all that. You're not married, but it could be difficult to extricate yourself from that relationship. Sometimes it is social entanglement. Oh, our families already know each other. They know me, they know you, people know us together. How is it going to be? Let's just go ahead and get married. And people have made those kind of decisions. How much more with sex? Every kind of entanglement makes it much more difficult for you to make a clear-headed decision. And sex is one of those things that makes it much more difficult. If you keep entanglements off the table, sexual entanglements, financial entanglements, the less entangled a relationship is, the easier it is to make clear-headed decisions. I've seen people who have stayed in abusive relationships because they are so emotionally tied to this person, because they've been having sex with the person, that it becomes hard to tear away from the person. Or once a child enters and there are other complications, then it's like, okay, you know what, we already have a child together, why can't we just go ahead and do it? And other issues that come up like that. And so it's better to keep the entanglements off the table. Make your clear-headed decisions. The risk that you are afraid of getting married and facing fertility or sexual issues is much less than the risk that you face by being entangled, or the risk of that wedding not going ahead afterwards. There are greater risks attached to the second set of problems than the first set of problems. The number of people having fertility issues is still small compared to the greater population. And yeah, you might feel like, oh yeah, but I know 10 people. Count the number of people you know who have got married and had no problem having children, or the number of people you might know who had sex and even had to abort babies because they got pregnant and they wanted to get rid of it. Add all that number together and then compare it to the number of people who had issues getting pregnant. You'll find out that it's still a smaller percentage, and there are still ways to deal with that if there is love and everything else in the marriage is working out. So if you ask me, what should I do? I'll say stay away from it. Stay away from it. Too many red flags. If the guy loves you, they won't force you to get pregnant before you marry him to prove your fertility. The less entangled you are with somebody, the more likely you are to make clear-headed decisions that can work in your favor. So those are my thoughts for that. Keep entanglements off the table. Make clear-headed decisions that work in everybody's favor. Don't get yourself caught up in the emotions of having a child outside marriage or getting pregnant before you get married, because it just makes things much more complicated. Tell me what you learned from this video in the comment section. Remember to like this video, to share it with somebody who may find it useful, and definitely remember to subscribe to my channel. Till I come your way again next time. Ciao.